choosing a training area for a driving lesson. You notice I didn't say training route. We're looking for an area where you're able to be flexible, and you want to think of your area as that, an area that you go to practice whatever it is that you're working on. Now, several things to take into consideration when you're choosing an area. One of them is the pupil competency. So are you with a beginner? Are you with a partly trained pupil? Or are you with a trained pupil? So you'd be looking for a nursery route for the beginner, perhaps, an intermediate route for the partly trained, and a more advanced route for the trained pupil. Is the area that you're using appropriate to the lesson that you're giving? So there is no point in going to an area with one T-junction when your lesson is emerging at T-junctions. You need to be in an area where you have got plenty of that type of junction to work on. You need to know that area very, very well indeed. You need to know it well enough so that during the lesson, you can be flexible with where you go. And that will enable you to target any issues that the pupil is having at any point during that lesson. And so don't be afraid to be flexible with where you're going. For instance, if your pupil is only making a certain mistake whenever they turn right emerging from a T-junction, then you need to know the area well enough to get on a loop of rights and concentrate on that issue until it's resolved before then moving on. It needs to be a challenging area, but at the same time, it needs to be achievable. Okay, so there's no point in taking a beginner to an advanced route because they're never going to manage to achieve what you're looking for in that area. And we don't want to lose motivation and demotivate that pupil by giving them a task that is just too great. So yes, it wants to be challenging. We want to stretch the pupil, but it also needs to be achievable. Lots of opportunities to park. You need to be able to park to create time at any point during the lesson. So always looking for areas where you could park if you need to then create the time that you may need to analyse any issues that the pupil is having and to calm the situation down for a pupil at any point. You need to anticipate any other issues that could happen in that area. So, as I say, I've used emerging at T-junctions as an example of a lesson that you may well have been given. So if you think about the area you're going to, if you can anticipate any other issues that may happen. So if there are no roundabouts in that area, clearly you're not going to have to adapt the lesson to deal with any problems that have happened at any roundabouts. But it might be there are lots of meeting traffic situations in that area. So you can anticipate that actually I may need to adapt the lesson to deal with meeting traffic situations at some stage. Now, with a very early stage pupil, you might see that slightly differently. And instead of thinking, well, I'm aware that I might have to adapt the lesson to meeting traffic. Well, actually, if they're doing T-junctions for the first time and you're restricted to an area where there are quite a lot of meeting traffic situations, you well may put a strategy in place with your pupil before you start your practice in order to overcome the problems with the meeting traffic. And that strategy may well be that you agree with the pupil that you're going to support them through those areas to manage the risk because they are not competent at that yet, just so that you can continue to work on the T-junctions initially. So you may well put a strategy in place to manage the risk, but with a more advanced pupil that perhaps is competent at meeting traffic situations, you will just be anticipating that perhaps the lesson may need to be adapted at some stage to deal with any mistakes that they make in the meeting traffic situations. So there you are, a few things to take into consideration when you're thinking about the area. It needs to be challenging but achievable. It needs to be appropriate. Think about the competency level of the pupil. Lots of places to park, very important, which will really help you if anything goes wrong and anticipate any further issues that you may have to adapt the lesson for in the area that you're using.